There's a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello BookTube, I'm Sean the Book Maniac. Welcome back to my channel. Here I am with a page 112 video for the Asian Readathon. As you know, the Asian Readathon is on now. I hope you know. If you don't, I'm going to put a link to an announcement video in the show notes. And it is for the entire month of May. I am unable to participate as fully as I would like because I'm a little bit overcommitted with readathons and whatnot going on BookTube. But this is one way that I would like to contribute to all the fun. And that is, I'm going to do my famous page 112 thing with 3 Asian novels in English translation. In other words, I'm going to read page 112 to you. I'm not going to tell you anything about the title or the author, any background information. Read the pages to you, react to them, assess them. Am I interested in what I've read? Do I like the writing? And what am I curious about? What do I notice? Based solely on my reaction to page 112, I'm going to rank them, the one I'm most interested in, least interested in, and the one that's in the middle. And at that point, I will tell you about the books and we'll explore them in more detail. This is based on a French literary prize in which the short list, I think, or the long list, is generated by this exact approach. The jurors do not receive anything other than page 112 from all of the books, and they put together the short list or the long list. So I have adapted it for BookTube purposes, and I think it fits in well with the Asian Readathon. So let's get started. Here is book number 1. Bad Manners. Don't poke at your food. Her father's reprimand was immediate. Sakiko's hand froze, and her eyes swam as she desperately sought help that was not forthcoming. Eyes downcast, the girls continued slowly with the meal, keeping a weather eye on one another lest someone make a mistake. Sakiko wanted a drink of water, but decided not to do anything uncalled for. Their mother looked relieved, but just then their father's sharp voice rang out. "Can't you enjoy your meal? Children shouldn't act like grown-ups, always afraid of what someone may think. Act your age. Say something." Their mother's cold, determined eyes rested on Eiko, as if to say, "You're the only one who can get us through this." If Eiko remained silent, she might suffer some horrible retaliation afterward from their mother. Controlling her panic, Eiko looked up and began to talk. "Yesterday at school, the teacher spoke to us. He said that Japan has started to recover from the war, but we all have our work cut out for us. He said a woman's job is to marry, have children, and be a good wife and a sensible mother, making a warm home where her husband can relax and be at ease when he comes home tired from work. I completely agree." Her father's gaze softened approvingly as it rested on her. "That's an admirable teacher," he pronounced. Husako seized the moment to say, "I'm going to be an admirable bride." "Are you now? An admirable bride, eh?" He broke into a smile, and the tension in the room eased. "Me too. I want to be an admirable." Sakiko wanted to speak up, but she abandoned the idea, cowering at the mere thought of her father thundering, "Enough! Don't keep saying the same thing as other people." Alright, so that is obviously a Japanese family. I mean, I know that, but most of you would have recognized the Japanese names. This is around a Japanese dinner table with a strict father and a very quiet mother and 2 girls. Actually, I don't know how many girls. We've got Sakiko, Eiko, the mother and father, and then there's a reference to Husako, and I don't know that name, but most Japanese names that end in ko is a woman. Oh yeah, because Husako says, "I'm going to be an admirable bride." So yes, maybe 3 daughters. I was a little bit underwhelmed by this. It seemed very cliched. The writing didn't grab me. I didn't hate it, but it didn't really draw me in. It just seemed like such a stereotypical thing, and there was nothing in the way the dialogue or in the description of the people that made me all that interested to learn more. I just didn't find the writing drew me in. I encountered a lot of adjectives that didn't deepen my experience of a rather humdrum little scene here. So that one, I feel a bit underwhelmed by that. I mean, it wasn't horrible, but didn't grab me. So that's book number 1. Book number 2. I couldn't find a lot of help with the pronunciation of these names, so I'm going to do my best. Yu Day remained in the shade of the tree, rubbing his bare feet, still at a loss for what to do. "Oh, what are you stewing over out here by yourself?" a voice behind him asked. Yu Day turned around and saw old De Shun. He felt a desperate need to discuss the situation with him. Although the two were a few years apart in age, they had been friends all their lives. Back in the old days, when they'd been hired laborers for a landowner, they had always stirred up trouble together. He raised his hand and called out, "De Shun, come have a seat. I've got a real problem." De Shun took the hoe off his shoulder and came over to sit beside Yu Day. "I've still got some work to do," he said. "I've got to till my allotment again this afternoon. The whole thing is full of weeds." He took the pipe Gao Yu Day handed him and asked, "What's there to feel bad about? You have such a good, reliable son. Things are bound to get better in a year or two. Ji Lin is really a good boy. Don't worry about Ming Lu or Li Ben causing a stink. Soon no one will be able to stop Ji Lin from making good." "Ah," Yu Day gave a long sigh. "You praise him too much. He's in a lot of trouble." "Trouble?" The wrinkles on De Shun's face deepened around his eyes. Gao Yu Day hesitated, then said, "The youngster and Lu Li Ben's second daughter have been fooling around together, and the news has spread through the village like wildfire. You must have heard about it." Okay, well, that one, at least the story grabbed me. I didn't find the writing all that interesting, but I got a bit more of a personality of the characters, because the language did convey a little bit more of a spirited story, and there certainly is a hint that there's going to be interesting developments in this family, or the family of Gao Yu Day, however his name should be pronounced. So the story pulls me in. The writing is not as lackluster as the first one, but the writing is nothing special, but I would say it's more inviting than the first one. Yeah, this one, I'm curious about this one. And book number 3. Sora and I scrambled to get our hands on the tastiest middle parts, and before long I was stuffed and left the 3 seated round the table to go and pee. On the way to the bathroom, I noticed that the door of the room where the Jessa table was laid out was slightly ajar. Without much thought, I peered through the crack that was about 2 finger joints wide, and amid the smell of candle wax and flame and the subtle scent of Chinese ink, I saw a hand reach out and grab a pear from a plate. All this happened in the blink of an eye. I barely had time to register any details about the hand. Someone's there, I thought, as I backed away from the door. Then I headed to the bathroom, peed, and returned to the living room for more watermelon. I didn't understand what I'd witnessed, and soon forgot what I'd glimpsed through the gap. It wasn't a secret so much as I was merely the only one who knew about the incident, having so promptly erased it from my mind. It wasn't until this morning that I dreamt of that someone, the person belonging to that hand. I'd opened my eyes to find the room sunk in darkness, a large window by my head. I knew it was a dream by the size of that window. The window in my room is nowhere as big. Okay, well, I definitely want to know more, even though I'm not a big fan of dreams and fiction. Just that passage really grabbed me, so it's obvious. I could just even hear it in my voice. The prose just flowed, and the sentences were so much more sophisticated. The writing was just lovely, that I loved this one. I mean, it's such a small little incident, but it seems like this witnessing of someone pilfering a peach. Was it a peach? A pear. Pilfering a pear will have some significance to the story. The narrator seems like she's got a lot of vim and vinegar to her. I assume it's a her, but why do I think that? I shouldn't assume that. It just feels like a young woman, and I do have one other reason, which is, I might as well tell you that the author is female, but that doesn't necessarily follow, does it? The narrator is so perceptive, and that's transmitted on the page in a way that just makes this seemingly minor incident so vivid, so that the fact that it's going to probably lead not just to a dream, but to something that's important in the larger story, it just all clicks in one short excerpt. I am really sold on this one. I don't know what a Jessa table is. I'll look that up after. So that is definitely my first book. So in reverse order, my choices would be book number 3 first, far and away the one that grabbed me the most. Book number 2 grabbed me to a certain extent, and book number 1 didn't really grab me at all. So those are my choices. Tell me, I'm always curious, tell me in the comments below what your choices would be. Without knowing anything about the author or the title or anything, what would your ranking be? I'd be very curious to hear. So now it's time for me to reveal the books to you, and I will reveal them in the order in which I ranked them. So I'll start with book number 3, and that's the Korean novel I'll Go On by Hwang Jong-un, translated from the Korean by Emily Ye Won, a publication by the fabulous Tilted Axis publisher. My second pick, book number 2, is Life by the Chinese writer Yu Gao, translated from the Chinese by Chloe Estep. And my third choice is the Japanese novel White Elephant by Mako Idemitsu, translated from the Japanese by Juliet Winters Carpenter. So, this is the Irish novelist Ronan Hession's favorite work of Korean fiction, or one of his favorites, and that's why I got it. Actually, this was a trade. He traded me this for some books of mine that I didn't want, so yes, this is actually kind of a gift from Ronan, and I can't wait to read it, especially now that I've read the page. Published in English in 2018. Published in Korean in 2014. Okay, so the narrator, is not Sora, but Sora seems to be the main character. So maybe there's alternate points of view, chapter by chapter or something. But Sora seems to be the main character, and I don't know how old any of these people are when this happened, but she had been kind of raising her younger sister since her father died in a freak accident, and her mother had gone into shock and become unable to kind of parent for a while at least, and Sora takes a lot of responsibility. Again, I don't know the ages of any of these people at the time, but then she finds out that this younger sister who she'd been taking care of is pregnant. So that's a premise that very much appeals to me. This definitely sounds like a Sean book, and the writing very much appealed to me as well. Hwang Jong-un has published 2 collections of short stories and 3 novels. And that's all I know about her, and I definitely won't be able to get to it this month, but I hope one of you will, because you watch this video and you'll tell me how good it is, because it sounds really great. Yu Lao's Life, translated by Chloe Estep, is an Amazon Crossing book. Translation from 2019, the original Chinese novel published in 1982. Liu Yao is dead, and he published only 2 novels before his, what is described on the back cover as an untimely death, but was considered one of the top-tier writers of Chinese contemporary fiction at the time of his death. He was 42 when he died in 1992. This protagonist, we did hear about him, Gao Jilin, is a stubborn, idealistic, and ambitious young man from a small country village. He loses his job as a school teacher because of corrupt local politics, and this is set in the gritty backdrop of 1980s China. Well, that all sounds interesting. The writing was interesting enough that I will definitely try this medium-sized novel. And White Elephant by Mako Idemitsu. I feel bad that I didn't connect with this, and my judgments are harsh when I don't like something, and, maybe it's too harsh to judge a book by 1 page only. It wasn't awful, so yes, I will definitely give it a try. This was published in 2016, the English translation, but it's described as being a first edition, so I don't see any information on the copy. There is nothing about a Japanese edition, so it may have been first published in English translation, which I've never heard of before. That's fascinating. Mako Idemitsu was born in Tokyo to an elite conservative family. Moved to the U.S. in the early 60s, married the abstract expressionist painter Sam Francis. Never heard of him. Here's her. Her bio sounds interesting. She began making experimental films investigating gender, domesticity, and Japanese identity. Oh, and she, too, is an artist, because her artwork is in museums across the globe. She currently lives in Tokyo with her Japanese husband, so that marriage to the abstract expressionist, I guess he was lacking in expression and a little too abstract. So she's hopefully more happily married and living back in Tokyo. And this novel is about a self-made man in post-war Japan. It was obvious post-war. Two sisters struggle to uphold the family reputation. The Sakiko who we met there, she moves to the US, so that might be the autobiographical character. She is fragile and unsure in 1960s San Francisco. Yeah, it doesn't really sound that interesting to me, but maybe one of you might enjoy it. So that is the page 112 tag or video thing that I've done for the Asian Readathon. And I hope that one or more of these will be put onto your TBR or your radar because of watching this video. That's why I did it. Thanks for watching.